If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to yWrite. Hi, welcome to yWrite. I'm your host, Angela Grout, and I thank you for tuning in to another episode of yWrite, where we talk to writers about why they're writing to find out why we should be writing our story. Because everybody has a story inside of them, and to share it is a gift. So today we are going to talk with a writer that's here from Northampton, and I want to tell you a little bit about my guest because we have a lot to discuss today that I know you're really going to enjoy because you are definitely going to have something inside of you that's going to come out on the paper today. So my guest is Judith Breier, and she is a saging coach, and she teaches life legacy writing. I love just saying that, life legacy writing. She is trained as an end-of-life doula. She's done volunteer for hospice, and she's a certified instructor for the AWA writing method, which I'm not going to tell you what AWA is. Maybe you already know, but she's going to give us some information on that. And we're going to find out exactly what the method is and why it's so important, because I also write in an AWA method, but I'm not certified like her. I am very excited to find out not only about how she got trained to teach legacy letter writing and what it is, but why she was so interested in it. So I want to welcome my guest, Judith Breier, here live in the studio from Northampton.
Hi there. So good to be with you. Thanks, Angela, so much for having me.
Oh, Judith, I'm so excited. We met a couple months ago.
That's right.
And, just that energy connection just brought us together. And then when I found out you were doing legacy letters, I just wanted to know more. I was like, I need to know more about this. As writers, we all are sharing stories, whether personal or, not or fictional stories, but it does become part of our legacy.
That's right.
And, when I hear legacy letters, at first I was like, oh, this is a letter you leave to your loved ones after you've died. And being an end-of-life doula, it definitely goes together, but it's even more than that.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about what legacy letter writing is.
So life legacy letter writing is first of all, I want to honor my mentor, Rachel Freed, who is somebody who I've been working with for a few years now, and she's been my mentor in this practice.
Yeah, and I have put her book here. It's Your Legacy Matters, and
it's wonderful.
It's very nice.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. And what I really like about this practice is that, so I'm going to go back and tell you a little bit about myself first before I get into that, because it all interweaves together into answering that question.
Right, because I have a lot of questions like why end of life doula and why hospice.
Exactly. So for me, as I was going through menopause, and I was noticing my body changing, how people were treating me in the outside world was different, and I kind of thought to myself, well, you know what? If I'm going to get wrinkly, and I'm going to get old, then I want to be wise. And what I do know is, from my experience, is that just because you're older doesn't mean you're a wise person. There's people who get older, and then there's people who are like wisdom holders or sages, to borrow a phrase from Saging International, and so that began my journey of really doing self-exploration, and a real interest in supporting women, or those who identify as women, in learning and how to take our life experiences and take those experiences, learn the lessons, and then share them with others. So it really becomes a growth process for ourselves, coming to terms to our life, with our lives, which is a really big part of saging work, which is life review, looking at our successes, our failures, our challenges, places we need to do forgiveness work, and then come to terms with it through what did I learn, even betrayals, you know, what did I learn? How did my life open up?
I want to go back to one thing because I want to make sure it's clear with the audience. You know, you're talking about, and I mentioned this in the beginning, that you're a saging coach. And I know a lot of people think sage, you know, the herb, but can you want to talk a little bit about the saging process that you were just explaining?
Yeah, I mean, saging is learning how to become a wise elder, and in order to do that, we need to learn from our experiences. We need to be able to deal with our past and come to terms with it. We also need to be able to look at our future and begin to befriend that, begin to befriend our mortality on a spiritual level. We need to do it on a physical level, like getting your advanced care directives and so on and so forth, and all your paperwork in order, and really deal with the fact that there might be physical challenges coming for us in the future, mental challenges, and just starting to befriend death, because we're closer. If your arc is that life arc is that you're going to die when you're older.
Yeah, 130. That's I'm claiming 130.
There you go. That death is a normal part of that process, and that we need to start leaning in to death, and that idea, and that it's normal.
Yes,
it's a normal part of our life.
You know, I do see that. You know, some people do some planning, but not to the spiritual and not to the emotional
That's
needs.
right.
Whereas, you know, my brother does financial planning for long-term health care. So, you know, I mean, you know, as a woman, you know, in your 40s, 50s, you know, you start saying, okay, I want to start planning for something like that. I mean, not just women, anyone. And, you know, you do reach out to a financial advisor to say, okay, how do I plan for my financial care for medical needs? But it's a whole different thing when you're talking about emotional and spiritual and just coming to peace with who you are and where you're going.
Exactly, and you bring up a really good point, because there is that part like that your brother does, you know, which is the financial aspect. And actually, legacy letters really dates back to Jacob in the Torah, in the Bible, and he had actually brought his 12 sons together and had said to him, this is what I'd like you to do with my body. I'd like you to bring it back to the homeland and bury me there. So that was like the beginning threads of not just like, this is your land, this is for you, here are 12 sheep. You know, it's like starting.
No, but it's so true, because you don't know. I mean, we all want to hope that, you know, when we go, it's at the right time when we're 130, but you want to make sure your wishes are known. And a lot of times, if they're not spelled out on paper, it may not happen, you know, because your family doesn't know. Like, you know, oh, did mom want to be, you know, cremated, or did she want to be buried? All of these conversations need to happen.
That's right. And a really good document for that is the 5 Wishes. 5 Wishes, I think it's fivewishes.org, but you can find it online, where you really get into the specifics of how you want to be cared for, spiritually, what's important, and so on and so forth. It's a wonderful document that in many states is legally binding. I think there's 5 in the U.S. where it's not. But legacy letter goes deeper than that. Although you obviously do legacy letters for your family after you've passed, or to go along with your advanced care directives. But it's really going back in your life and based on themes, and what did I learn? What have I learned, right? So the other day, in one of my legacy groups, I gave the prompt about our bodies. We started talking about our bodies. We started reflecting on our bodies. I always give a lot of prompts to enter into a writing piece. And it was beautiful to, 1, hear the conversations, and then 2, looking at our concept of our bodies and our struggles with our bodies, the pleasure that our bodies bring, you know, and the struggles even with that, different things. The conversations that we had were so rich, and then the writing was profound, because we're not just looking at, let's say, that topic, that theme, from who we were at the time, you know, way back in our 40s or 30s or 20s. We're looking at it through the lenses of who we are today.
Yeah, being very reflective.
And it's all reflective writing. And so it's really taking whatever is alive in us in that moment and then writing about it. And it's like, this is what I learned, and this is my blessing, my wish for you. So these are letters that you write. So it makes it a lot, for me, it makes it easier than doing an autobiography writing because that feels overwhelming to me. And I'm not putting down people who do that work. I think it's incredible. For me, it was overwhelming. And legacy letters are letters. Anybody can write. You know, when you're talking about the AWA methodology of writing, it's actually Amherst Writers and Artists, for people who don't know that terminology. And AWA, I got certified in 2013, and it really created the culture that or it informed the culture that I create in my writing groups when I was a teacher in my classroom, because it's really... what their values are is that everybody has a writer's voice.
Everyone has a writer's voice.
Everyone,
you have one.
That's right. And everyone is born creative. And writing is an art that belongs to all of us, no matter what socioeconomic place you come from, what your background is. It doesn't matter. Writing is a creative process that is a gift that we give to ourselves, but we have a right to it.
Love that.
Yeah, and that all work is treated as fiction, which I really appreciate, because then the author can really write honestly.
Yes.
And that, I think, is really incredibly important. And so being an AWA facilitator, because I used to do groups with adolescents. I used to love writing with adolescents, and I had several different groups where I did that work. But it's the tone. It's what I carried through into legacy. And I'm not there to critique you or teach you about craft at all, although AWA facilitators do that. When I do life legacy writing, I am not. I'm
well,
here
I think
to
it's
support
important
your voice.
for the person, when we first sit down, you have to get the story out. You don't need to worry about the grammar and the punctuation and and the facts and things like that. You just want to get it onto the paper so you have somewhere to go. And when, we, in the writing groups that I've been in, we do the AWA method where, when you are sharing, it is treated as fiction. So therefore, no one is critiquing your opinion, your style, your life, story, or whatever it is. It's like, okay, this is a creative story, and we're going to just make sure it flows.
That's right. No, exactly. And it creates a culture that's safe.
Yes.
And you can't, I don't feel that one writes well if you don't feel safe to just write whatever comes out of you onto the paper and not be judged.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, and then especially in writing groups, it's important to share, because when you share out loud, it helps to give those words a voice, and you hear it yourself also to say, okay, what did I write? What resonates with me? What resonates with someone else? Because so much of our stories are intertwined with others that you think it just is you. And then someone else like, oh, I have so I went through a similar experience. And I think this is where it's real important with life legacy letters to share your experience, because it's, number one, going to resonate with someone, but number two, the wisdom that comes from writing them can help someone else.
Exactly. And also what's really cool about it too is that people have different perspectives on a theme. And so not only do you resonate and come together with people like, oh, you're not alone in this, but it's also like opening you up to be able to hear different voices that actually are different than your own. And that's really important too, because not only because that's an important practice in this world today or in general, but it also opens you up and brings new ideas into your own mind.
Oh, 100%. It does that to me for, when I write all the time, because someone might say something and then it triggers something that says, oh yeah, I want to write about that time I broke my foot, and, it's like, not that I always want to write about breaking a body part, but, it's like something that people resonate and understand and have empathy for.
Exactly. So it's beautiful writing. You can write these letters to loved ones, family members. If you have children, you can write it to children. People write these letters to future generations. And if you really get into the writing of legacy letters, you actually could end up with a manuscript that you weave together and then give to whoever.
I'm liking this idea.
Well, one of my dreams is actually to put a book together of community members, like I'm in Northampton, and putting it in the library.
Oh yeah, that would be beautiful.
Sage wisdom from
Well, during the pandemic, I was online with a writers group, and we all sent in pieces of articles about what we were going through during the pandemic.
Oh, that's important.
To kind of, almost like, similar, just because you're like documenting it in that moment for someone to, in the future read about that moment, because it's kind of hard to believe that moment happened. I have to laugh about it with humor to deal with things, but it's like, the world shut down.
For 3 years,
the world shut down. That just does not seem like that seems like a movie. It's an apocalypse thing, and it's like, whoa, that really happened. So do you, I know you brought these wonderful books, and I definitely want to share them, like about, if you want to tell us a little bit about them, because these are the books that people can go to learn about this process and just writing in general too.
Exactly. And also aging, and just and how we can look at aging and our death in a way that is really supportive to us and to our family members and the people and our friends and our community. Yeah. So I brought different books, but the first books I'll share, you have this one right here, which is Your Legacy Matters by Rachel Fried, my mentor. I highly recommend it. It's a very easy and accessible book to be able to access the content. Another one, you're going to see it right now. It's very used. Women's Lives, Women's Legacy. That's another book that she wrote, which is, again, it's different than Your Legacy Matters. It's geared towards women's storytelling, and it's beautiful. Another book, so those are her books, and there's another workbook that you can find online, and it's Rachel, Rachel Fried, Freed. Okay. So you can find her other book online, her workbook. Another book. And then I brought books on aging, and I've read a lot of books on aging, and there's a lot of books coming out and have been coming out as the population in our world is getting older. Which is
a wonderful thing. I actually will say, my father-in-law and a few other people will be like, I don't know why I have to live to be this old or whatever. And I go, first of all, you need to make aging look good for all of us, because we want to age. You want to make it look good. I go, but it's also part of life. And you actually said something to me at one point, and I don't know if I'm going to quote you perfectly, but you were just talking about like how, so many people look at death or dying in death as like a loss, like,
a failure.
A failure in life. And it's like, this is part of life.
That's right.
It's part of our journey. It's not something we have to work for or towards. It's just, that's a natural thing.
Or against.
Yeah, or against.
That's right.
And, if we can just kind of age gracefully and enjoy each moment that we're in, that's part of the wisdom, I think, of working our way into the natural flow of how life will be.
And I think that's why it's so important to do life review, and to really explore not just the successes but the hard stuff. And what did it teach me? When I look back at these places, what does it teach me? And who do I need to forgive still? Can I forgive myself for the mistakes I've made? Yeah. All of that kind of work, as well as looking at our future, what it does, and coming to terms with it, what it does is it frees us up emotionally and spiritually to be in the moment, like you were talking, to be in presence and free.
And free is important, because it is, when you do life reviews, sometimes you say, did I waste time doing that? What was the point of doing that particular part of my life? Or, but then when you realize what lessons you've walked away with, or what wisdom you've walked away with, and how it's leading you to the path that you're on.
Exactly. And it has led you. That's right. Yeah. And I think legacy letters are really part of it. This process, because as you know, as a writer, that when you write something, and I'm sure your audience, but as you write something down, there's something that happens in your brain where it's no longer just ideas or thoughts floating, but it actually is, you're processing, like from here to the pencil or the computer and writing. There's a process that's happening, and where you're getting clearer each time you write or edit. You're getting clearer and clearer and clearer, and that process is healing just in and of itself. when you add that. You know, that lesson that you've learned.
I love writing for healing. I actually do teach a class in Westfield at Results in Wellness, which is writing to heal. And, we have people, sit down and name 2 or 3 moments in their life that they were sad or a tragic moment or something. And, they're writing that down and then they're writing about it for about 10 minutes. And a lot of times the anger comes out, but then we have to turn it into, more of, I am grateful I went through this because there's always going to be something that, you've learned going through it. And I mean, for me, I'll give an example. Like I've just had my knees replaced. And I mean, it was a very painful process leading up to it, very painful process in recovery. And, it's like, well, why did I have to have my knees replaced? That was so traumatic. And, but then realizing that it allowed me to allow others to help me because, we don't want to ask for help.
No.
But when you have to, you realize who you can ask and, things like that. And then, just learning, for me, I know that knees, I have studied the Roby method and I do Reiki. And I know that, when there's pain in the knees, it has to do with pivoting and changing in your life. And I'm thinking, I'm really pivoting and changing in my life. I'm going from this florist to sitting here, in front of a camera. Like no one would have ever thought, I would have never thought this would ever happen.
Beautiful.
So it's just a matter of, my life is adjusting. And, now I have, two twins on my knees. I call them my twins, and we're doing well.
It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful story. Your class sounds great.
And I've written letters to my knees, both
the
ones that they took out and the new knees.
That's beautiful.
Just to accept them into my life.
That's right.
It is a way for me. I mean, writing is healing for me. That's definitely my process. And that's why I want to share it with others, and why I'm so interested in what you do. I'm wondering, can you share with us like what a legacy letter sounds like?
Sure. And what I want to do is, so what I'm going to do is I want to share the structure of a legacy letter because it's really specific, and I think this is what makes it like so doable.
Yeah.
Especially for people who feel like writing an autobiography is like.
Yeah.
Freaking them out, like scary as anything.
Well, especially people think autobiography, they think birth to death, and it's like, wait a second, I have 130 years to write about. How am I going to get all this down on paper?
Well,
but this is how.
This is exactly right, yeah. So it's really very simple. There's the first paragraph or paragraphs are your content. You're introducing your audience, whoever that is, to, the content, like what you're going to write about. Yep. The next one is your story. Or the next few paragraphs are your story. Then you have your lesson, and then you have the last is your blessing to whoever you're writing this to, and it could be just to yourself.
Yeah, I need to do more of this, like more of the formal stuff, because I'm doing it informally. I know I am with Writing to Heal, but when you say that, I'm like, that's exactly what I'm trying to communicate to everyone.
Yeah, it's a beautiful format, and it's kind.
Yeah,
it's kind and it's gentle. It's beautiful. So when you asked me to. Can you share a letter? At first I was like, oh yeah, I've got letters
share
I can
one
share.
of your letters.
Yeah, and then I decided, I was like, you know what? These are really personal. They're
Yeah.
to my daughters. They're really personal. I don't know if I want the whole world to
Right,
hear them.
right.
So I decided to go into Rachel's book and pick a letter that I've shared before, which gives you the format. And it's a great letter.
It's story time. Listen up.
That's right. Sit back and relax with your tea or your coffee. Dear Alyssa and Suzanne, August 1st, 2007 was a life-changing day for me. I was driving my usual route home from work-related meeting, crossing the bridge on I-35 West. The traffic was slow because of repairs being made, and my car clock said 6. I patiently waited as the traffic moved slowly on the bridge, and I finally arrived at home about 6:20. My phone was ringing. A friend was calling to ask me if I was watching the news on TV. I told him that I'd just gotten home, and he said, turn it on. It was then that I realized I had made it over the I-35W bridge just 5 minutes. By just 5 minutes. As Senator Amy Klobuchar expressed, a bridge in America just shouldn't fall down. But one did, and it collapsed in Minneapolis. Once again, I'm reminded of how precious life is. So my beloved daughters, Alyssa and Suzanne, this is a blessing for you to reinforce and hope you will never forget how important today is. Give thanks for today because we don't know what tomorrow brings. Happiness and hope can quickly turn to sorrow and loss. So please make sure to not only say thank you, but share your inner feelings of love and values. Don't wait. Seize the moment. Smile to everyone, no matter where paths cross or whether friend or stranger. Your inner radiance is God's gift for you to share. And make it your obligation to illuminate the sky when darkness is all around us. We don't always grasp what we have or who we are until it is almost taken from us. So please, be present. Don't hurry through life, forgetting to say I love you. I love life. I love you, your mom.
That's beautiful. You know, it is exactly, you know, her sharing that traumatic, almost traumatic moment. I mean, still a trauma in the world, but, you know, saying this is where I was. And I love that. That's a very uplifting letter, even though the bridge collapsed and I know other people didn't survive. But yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. It is. It's so beautiful, and the love and the tenderness that she's sharing, this important gift, you know, make it your obligation to illuminate the sky when darkness is all around us. Mm-hmm.
And it's so true, because when you have, you know, war or catastrophe, it becomes dark and gloomy, and, you know, you have to find you know, the heroes in the story. You know, they always say, you know, look for the heroes, look for the people.
Hero.
Be the hero.
You be the hero. Be you.
You know, go in and do that. So
be in compassion and kindness.
Yeah. So where can people take a class with you to learn to do this and actually sit down and work with you on this?
So the best way to get a hold of me, because I am not a tech person, I have to tell you, and I know that everything right now is on technology, you know, like Instagram, world. Facebook, all this. I am not that person. So the best way to do it is to email me at jbreier1@gmail.com.
Okay, and I will put that below in the links, and we'll have that. So, and you can always contact me here at yWrite, and I can get you in contact with Judith Breier. I mean, she's, you know, local here for us. We're in the Agawam studio in Massachusetts, and she's in Northampton, so it's not far. And
and I also do Zoom classes. I've done groups of classes on Zoom, so that's definitely, I do that as well. So
you could do a Zoom class once a week with her, write a letter each week, and get a little bit of your history down on paper.
That's right.
Get that manuscript together so we can publish it.
That's right. Well, it's a gift that you give yourself, and it's a gift that you give to absolutely everyone who you love. Mm-hmm. When you share who you are and what you value. Yeah. It's just so important. Yeah, no,
I love that. Well, I thank you so much for coming on today.
I'm
this
so
was
glad.
Great. I'm so glad we connected, and I'm so glad my audience got to meet you too.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You know, learning about you helps them to learn about me too, because, you know, this is something that I am passionate about writing to heal, and
that's right.
And just understanding that the journey of life, you know, is beautiful, and, you know, there's nothing in our life is for the bad. We have to look for the good always. So.
Yeah, amen. Yeah.
So this is the point in the show where I like to give the audience a prompt, and based on the life legacy letters, you know, we were talking earlier about how even just writing about our name, whether it's your first name or your last name, you know, it can be a little bit of a story that you can leave your children, your family, and writing it might even help you to accept more of who you are. You know, as women, I find it's sometimes funny how we get married and change our name. So it's like we're born with one name and then we evolve to this other name that we did not know. I was born Angela Schumann, and, you know, of course my parents saw me as an angel. I was Angel A, because I may or may not have been, I was a twin, and my twin sacrificed him or herself in the womb to give me the nutrients that I needed, so, which I'm very grateful for, but of course I mourn not having a twin and realize I have a little connection on the other side. So Angel B's there, Angel A is here, and, you know, my last name being Schumann, if you take the S off, it's human, so it's Angel as human.
I love
which
that.
I've always loved. That because we are all angels here on earth. I mean, as my belief is, we have come from somewhere. We are here on a journey to share, and, you know, we will return to our homeland. one day. But in the meantime, I've been Angel as human. Now I'm Angela Grout. Grout is that stuff that, is aesthetically pleasing and holds things together.
It's very important.
I don't know. The stuff in the tile. But anyways, it's like, okay, I have these two names. And for me to sit down and write like what they mean and to share like why they came to be is part of my life legacy. So if you want to take a moment now, I'm going to have my audience set their timer for, let's say 5-10 minutes. Put your microwave timer on, set your iPhone timer.
Can I just add
yes,
a bit to
definitely.
the prompt? So when we think about names, we actually think about, we don't actually think about how important they are. And if you think about people who've been oppressed or World War II, the Jews in World War II, or indigenous people in this country or in Canada who ended up going to the boarding schools, names were taken away, right? Oh. So when 9/11 happened, after that, any memorial service, you're saying the names.
Yes.
When people are murdered, you're saying their names and how important a name is. So we may not realize the importance of our names and thinking about our, the ancestral lineages, why we have our name, who is that, who does it represent in our family? Is it just a totally non-representation of our ancestors? Did our family have to change their name when they came in for immigration?
My grandmother came in from Italy, and her name was Carmela, and she spoke such, fluent Italian, and she was 8 years old, and they couldn't understand what she was saying, and her mother couldn't speak English, that on her certificate for the United States says Mildred. Because they said, oh, Millie, you're saying Millie, and she was saying Carmela. And Millie, it went to Millie, It went to Mildred. I didn't even know her name was Carmela until I saw her death certificate.
Wow.
So talk about a name.
That would have been an incredible story to,
because I was like, how is this her name? And then just the story behind it and why her mother named her Carmela.
That's right.
She was a Catholic and she was deeply in debt to Our Lady of Mount Carmel. That's a whole nother story, and that's what I want you to write on your paper right now is, take your name, first name, last name, whole name, and just start writing about, why it was given to you, what you know about that name. Perhaps you know the meaning of it. The name Angela, it means messenger. I mean, hey,
there you are.
I'm going with that. So take your time, write for 10 minutes, and until next time, I thank you so much for watching this episode of Why Write. I thank Studio 954 for making this possible, and for Judith Breier for coming into the studio. And I especially thank you, the audience, to continually tune in each week or binge watch the shows on YouTube at Why Write, and follow me on Facebook. And thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you next time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.